Hi everybody, Jeremy Siskind here. I am the author of this book called Playing Solo Jazz Piano, but you're also looking at the book over here, because I want to walk you through a chapter called Variations on the Quarter-Note Style Ballad. And if you've been following along with my channel, this is the fourth in a series about different ballad styles. All these styles are covered in the book. And in this case, I would recommend going and watching the second installment, which is called the Repeated Quarter-Note Style Ballad, because that's what this is based on. But I'll catch you up a little bit. I'm going to be using the Hoagy Carmichael tune, The Nearness of You, as an example. In a repeated quarter-note ballad, essentially what happens is that kind of somewhere in the middle of your voicing, like for example, right here, I'm going to choose to repeat just one finger. It might be one note, it might be two notes. And what we're doing there is we're simulating like the brushes on the snare drum that would be happening if you were playing a ballad with a group. And this really forms kind of a soloist, a melody, a singer, and accompaniment kind of a style here. So you have to play the melody really beautifully. And you have to keep that repeated quarter note really softly, because who wants to hear? If you do that, it's too loud. Relatively simple style. It's very direct. And by the way, this is a straight eighth note jazz ballad style. In jazz, we can play ballads either swung or straight, but this particular style lends itself to straight eighth note ballads. You can hear the straight da 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 da, right? That's the most prominent subdivision. It's not right? It's not that triplet kind of subdivision. So that's the general concept of the repeated quarter note style ballad. What I want to tell you about today is other kind of straight eighth note ballads that we could call offshoots or variations of this quarter note style ballad. And so the first couple that I want to show you here are just adding eighth notes in different places of this pattern. And this is something that I completely stole from Keith Jarrett. By the way, in this book, I've used Danny Boy as an example. And I will be playing you the examples in the book, but then I'll also be playing you examples on The Nearness of You, so that you can kind of hear, if you own the book already, you can hear what the examples sound like from the book, you can follow along, or you can follow along on your screen. And then you can hear how it would be applied to a different tune. Because it's, hearing it on one tune is great, but it really is useful, I think, to hear it on some different tunes. You can get a sense of the sound, and the style, and how it works. So in this first example, we're adding in eighth notes on the end of 2 and the end of 4. Or one way to think about this is the weak beats of the 4/4 measure, 2 and 4, leading into the strong beats, 1 and 3. And so what we're doing is we're kind of forming that and I always try to make the offbeat notes lower than the downbeat notes. So let me play this example, and you can see, here, I'm going to write on this for a second. Let me grab my pen. These are the notes on, not that one that I just circled, that's on the downbeat, on the end of 2 and the end of 4, whereas, your repeated quarter notes are up here. So it's high, high, low, high. So here's how this sounds. Has a nice groove to it. You're emphasizing the downbeats, but you get that And here's how it sounds like on The Nearness of You. One thing to watch is that sometimes this pattern can be all in the left hand, so it could be, or it could be the right going into the left. You see my right hand thumb is playing the quarter notes, and my left hand index is playing those skip beats. I call those offbeat notes skip beats. So beautiful style. You could also, and here's example for 14.2, you could also put the skip beats leading into the weak beats, so leading into beats 2 and 4. And here you can see that, again, those skip beats are lower than the other notes. So, the way it's written, it kind of looks like the bass note and then the skip beat are ascending. So I'll play what's on the page first. Here's the nearness of you. Sounding, again, just a lovely ballad style. You could also put eighth notes between all the beats, in which you get what I'm calling the constant eighths ballad, which you see here in example 14.3. And again, you can see that there is kind of a shape to it, right? It's low, mid, high, low, mid, high, low. It's forming kind of a pyramid. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that you can do this, but this is a really nice kind of standard way. So let me play what's on the page here. Feeling to me. It no longer really feels like the kind of ballad I would play with a group. Like, I'm not really hearing the snare drum so prominently in there anymore, but it's very pianistic in a lovely way. And if I were going to do that on the nearest of you, notice the repeated quarter notes are still in the right hand, right? So it's not like this is no longer a repeated quarter note ballad. It just has other stuff going on to fill in the space underneath. And by the way, you could certainly fill that in even more, and that's what example 14.4 is showing, that I could add more into the right hand. You can see the left hand looks pretty much the same as it did in that previous example, just consistent eighth notes. But I'm just adding thicker chords into the right hand, just a lot more going on. So that now the right hand's also playing every single eighth note between the melody and this kind of alto line. So thick ballad. Love that style. I could do the same thing for the nearness of you. Fluid eighth note ballad. So already you've got 4 really good ballad ideas. But let's keep going. Another thing that you can do is you can move these repeated quarter notes to the offbeats. And we get what I refer to as an ECM style ballad. If you're not familiar with that terminology, ECM is a record label that's still going pretty strong, led by Manfred Eichert. Eichert? I'm pronouncing that wrong, I'm sure. Eichler? No? I don't know. Somebody correct me. And it's known for straight eighth note European jazz that sometimes leans towards a new age category. And it's not a Latin style, but it's straight eighth. And this can be a really nice way to play a ballad. So, instead of playing Danny Boy with these quarter notes on the beat, adjacent, maybe a little new age adjacent, but check this out. Different effect. I'm using a lot of pedal. And oftentimes, what example 14.6 shows, I like to add bigger chords as I do this, because it sounds a little bit, I think that the repeated quarter note isn't really having that snare drum sound anymore, the brush on the snare drum sound. And so with some bigger chords, it just really fills out the texture. So check out example 14.6. Oftentimes when you do this, you could actually put them in as though they're offbeat 16th notes. So kind of twice as fast, or the other way to think about it is to play the melody twice slow. So you could blow the melody up. We call that technically augmenting the melody. To me, this is a little bit better. Nice flow to it. Here's the nearest of you with that same style. When there's a little bit of movement here, right? And you might be wondering, we're going to talk about Bossa Nova in just a second, but to me, the biggest difference between this and Bossa Nova is the bass. There's a few other, potential differences too, but if I start moving the bass, now it starts already sounding like Bossa Nova, and we're going to talk about some other differences as well. All right, and commonly, if you want to really go in more of a new agey poppy direction, we might, instead of just holding, we might do something like a held Charleston. So this sounds like this, and sometimes, as I was preparing for this, I found myself playing, not repeating the bass note, but just the upper chord. So I'll show you that. Very floaty, very flowy. With the nearness of you, same thing, and here I'm really not going to repeat that bass. Fun to play in that style. I also love a tango ballad, okay? And I'm using tango in the loosest of possible definitions here. Tango is this brilliant, complex style, and I know very little about it. I really only know the cliches of tango. But I would implore you guys to check out one of my favorite ballad performances, which is Fred Hirsch playing the tune If I Loved You, which is from his album Live at Maybach. And he kind of does a very similar style to this. And I've written kind of a very generic tango left hand, and I apologize to anybody who really knows this music. But this can be just another slightly different take on this style of ballad that can just give you another look. If you're playing a long set, a background music or a long recital of solo piano, this is just kind of a different take on a tune. And tango, of course, can suggest seduction or intimacy or mystery, and so it's kind of nice. So this sounds like this. Kind of funny to play Danny Boy with a little bit of tango. Two nationalities that are very different, but fun. I love playing that way because it adds a little bit of playfulness, and I can use some short notes and kind of just mix up my style a little bit more than I can if I'm just playing that kind of more straight ECM ballad. With the nearness of you, it sounds like this. As it's moving slowly, you can play everything with just enough movement, enough color, enough melodic interest that even though it's so slow, your listeners are still really, interested and riveted, and there's a focus to it. Now, I did warn you we'd talk a little bit more about Bossa Nova. So in order to kind of take this repeated quarter note style, which is, it's now become kind of an offbeat repeated eighth note style, but you can hopefully trace how we got from one to the other. The two big things that I would do is think more about bass, and especially having bass, the 1 on beat 1 and then the 5 on beat 3. And then frequently we'll add in these skip beats, which usually go into beat 3 or to beat 1, to provide a little bit more rhythm. And I love, even though it's kind of a complex rhythm, I love using this partito alto rhythm, which goes da, da, and you can't always play every part of the partito alto rhythm, so I like to just kind of hint at it where I can. Now, I did make a whole video called Can You Play Bossa Nova Solo Piano, so if you have more interest, please check that out. But I just wanted to trace how we could kind of get from one to the other, from this repeated quarter note ballad to, a Bossa Nova style. So this sounds like, here's what it sounds like for Danny Boy. It's definitely possible, and you can take a little bit of a break from the bass line, you can take a little bit of a break from the partito alto, you can phrase the melody so it's a little bit more convenient, to work that out all together. I have one more page of stuff to show you. It's all kind of waltz ballads, but before I do, I want to give you my word of the day, which is mango. So if you've made it this far in the video, please comment with mango so I know who the real loyal fans of this page are. And yeah, check out the other 3 videos from this series. One's on a stop-start rubato ballad, one's on the repeated quarter-note ballad, and then the third one's on stride piano ballad. I think it's really good to have an arsenal of different ballad approaches so that all your ballads don't sound the same. And I so appreciate anybody who buys my book, especially through my website, jeremysiskind.com, because then I don't give half of the money to Jeff Bezos. So waltzes, you can play ballads in 3/4 time as well, and kind of any of these ballad styles could be applied to 3/4 time. I wanted to show you a few that I've heard in the recorded repertoire of our great jazz pianists. So one thing to do is just to play it with repeated quarter notes. Oops, excuse me. So this is kind of your simplest version of a waltz ballad. Of you. Also add this eighth between the first and the second beat. I included this because I've heard Keith Jarrett do it. Tune in 3/4 because it kind of moves so fast it gets a little bit cluttered, but you get the idea. You could of course do a constant eighth waltz ballad. I'll play what's on the page here, I'm sorry. Or I could do an ECM style waltz ballad, putting things on the offbeats. I'll play this as it's written, and then I'll show you on the nearest of you as well. Oh man, sorry. Here's nearest of you. Tell my students like pulling taffy when you're doing it right. Like it should never feel like it's coming to a resolution. You should never be dropping your weight. You're just kind of pulling through this very beautifully. I really hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. Again, you've been looking at some instruction from my book, which is called Playing Solo Jazz Piano. Please check out all 4 installments of my ballad series, and stay tuned. I'm going to do some stuff about comping next week. See you later.